In early 2022, the Biden administration signaled it would not just continue Trump-era tariffs on Chinese goods, it would escalate economic pressure on China. In February, the U.S. government tightened export restrictions on Chinese companies, adding more than 30 to the so-called unverified list. Washington also expanded its stricter trade blacklist throughout the year and moved to delist companies of Chinese extraction from U.S. exchanges that U.S. regulators couldn't audit. Then came the Ukraine conflict. The U.S. pressed China, India and the rest of the developing world to abide by U.S. and European sanctions against Russia, largely without success.
We strongly urge the U.S. not to harm China's interests when handling relations with Russia. China and Russia will continue to carry out normal economic trade cooperation in the spirit of mutual respect, equality, and benefit.
A March 18th video call between President Xi Jinping and Joe Biden sought to stabilize relations in the wake of the conflict. It also served as a chance for President Biden to reaffirm the One China policy over Taiwan. But in May, the U.S. State Department changed the language about the island on its website. The mixed messages over Taiwan continued through 2022. Biden stated Washington would defend Taiwan in the event of a conflict for a fourth time since last year.
You didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
No one should underestimate the firm resolve, staunch will, and strong ability of the Chinese people in defending national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Don't stand in the opposition of the 1.4 billion Chinese people.
And while high-level contacts in May and June talked about cooperation over global issues like climate change, the U.S. continued to tighten economic sanctions against China, banning Xinjiang cotton exports to the U.S. and advanced semiconductors and related technologies to China. The nearly 2.5-hour call in July between Xi and Biden was candid. Xi said the One China principle is the political foundation of U.S.-China relations. Beijing officials later expressed deep reservations over the planned visit to Taipei by second in line to the presidency, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
China requests the U.S. abide by the One China principle and the 3 joint Sino-U.S. communiques, avoid arranging Pelosi's trip to Taiwan, cease official interaction between the U.S. and Taiwan, and stop creating factors contributing to the tension in the Taiwan Strait, and through concrete action fulfill its commitment not to support Taiwan independence.
Pelosi's trip went ahead anyway in August, leading to heightened tensions and a decline in cooperation between the two capitals. In September, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken at the UN in New York, an opportunity for more tough talk with Washington over Taiwan. The next month, the U.S. government restricted Chinese access to advanced semiconductor chips and the equipment to make them. But as the year ended to a close, the first face-to-face meeting between the two presidents in Bali, Xi said the U.S. and China need to explore the right way to get along with each other. Both sides resumed cooperation on climate change. The U.S. exempted hundreds of Chinese products from punitive tariffs, and China agreed to have U.S.-listed Chinese companies audited by U.S. regulators. Throughout 2022, Washington moved to strengthen the so-called Quad, the U.S., Japan, Australia and India. China dismissed it as a sea foam that would dissipate. The U.S. also continued to press other allies, especially in Europe, to increase economic pressure on China. But as we enter the new year, there are signs of a deepening diplomatic engagement between Washington and Beijing. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to have a trip to China early in the new year. There's been renewed contacts between the Defense Departments of the U.S. and China and on the commerce level as well. But even though the Biden administration have abandoned the language of American first, well, essentially that policy continues. Nathan King, CGTN, outside the White House.